Mr. Doorkeeper, please allow the Honorable Michael P. Boggs and the Justices of the Supreme Court, as well as the Honorable Amanda H. Mercier, and the judges of the Court of Appeals entrance to the House chamber, and the messenger will escort them to their designated seats. Okay, members of the House of Representatives and the Senate will come to order. All members, please take their seats. This joint session will come to order. Mr. Clerk, will you read a resolution?
House Resolution 5 by Representative Abstration to the 104th, a resolution calling a joint session of the House of Representatives and the Senate for the purposes of hearing a message from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court inviting each other justice of the Supreme Court and each judge of the Court of Appeals to be present at the joint session and for other purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. It's good to have everyone here this morning to hear some important message from the Chief Justice. We welcome our members of the Judiciary. Thank you for being here, supporting the Chief Justice, and we thank you for the work that you do for all Georgians. We recognize a couple of people that are important to getting the work done for all Georgians. First, I want to recognize the gentleman on my left, the Lieutenant Governor, who's doing a great job, and we're looking forward to working with him and the Senate to get some awesome things done for the people of Georgia. Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. A couple of other folks that are crucial to the working of this General Assembly. A dear friend, the President Pro Tem of the Senate, John Kennedy. Senator Kennedy. Thank you for your work, Senator. I appreciate your leadership. Now, this is a special day for a number of reasons, but even what makes it even more special is the birthday of the next person I'm going to introduce. The Speaker Pro Tem of this House, a dedicated public servant, a dear friend who's represented her district and the people of this state in a distinguished manner over the years in her service as a representative, but especially as Speaker Pro Tem. Happy birthday, Speaker Pro Tem Jan Jones. I knew you wanted that special recognition on your birthday. It's my great honor now to introduce the Chief Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court. Justice Boggs was elected to that position to serve as Chief Justice in 2022. Prior to that time, years of service to the people of Georgia in our judicial system. Chief Justice Boggs served as judge on the Court of Appeals of Georgia, as a Superior Court judge down in his hometown of Waycross, the Waycross Judicial Circuit. And most importantly, he was trained right here in this House as a member of this House of Representatives. He's a graduate of Mercer Law School and Georgia Southern University. There we go. Go Eagles, yes sir. And some really important things that Chief Justice Boggs has been involved in. He served as a member of Georgia's Special Counsel on Criminal Justice Reform and the Georgia Criminal Justice Reform Council. Meaningful work that he threw his time and effort into that work. Now he is currently a member of Governor Brian Kemp's of Georgia's Behavioral Health Reform and Innovation Commission, and serves as chair of the Mental Health Courts and Corrections Subcommittee and the Familiar Forces Advisory Council. Among many other things he's doing, but one of his passions is mental health, and his work over the years does not go unnoticed. Thank you, Chief Justice. Chief Justice, for the important part, lives in Pierce County with his wife, Heather, who's been teaching kindergarten for 32 years. And she thought it was more important for her to be with her students today than be here. And I commend her for that. And I salute her for that. Thank you, Heather. Along with justice goes wisdom to administer justice. I know of no one in the judiciary that I've watched over the years does not simplify that virtue. Justice Boggs gets to the point. He gets it right for the people of Georgia, working with the other justices. You know, he has a passion for justice. He has a passion for his neighbor. And I think that's very much evident in his work in the judiciary and why he's recognized by his peers to serve in this very, very important position in our state. He's done all these things, all the while honoring and respecting his fellow man. It's my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce to you all and present to you the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Georgia, Chief Justice Michael P. Boggs.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Lieutenant Governor Jones, Speaker Burns, President Pro Tem, and my friend John Kennedy. Speaker Pro Tem, happy birthday, Jan Jones. You'll excuse me for not singing. Members of the General Assembly, justices and judges who are here with us today, and my fellow Georgians. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. Before I get started, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence, if you all will join me, for the Chief Judge of the Mountain Judicial Circuit, Rusty Smith, who many of you may have heard passed away late last night. Rusty was a personal friend and a wonderful colleague to so many of us, and I appreciate the Speaker giving me an opportunity for us to honor him in this way. So will you please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. You may be seated. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family, both his personal family and his professional family. So thank you for that opportunity. I'm honored to represent the nearly 1,600 judges in Georgia who are committed to upholding our oaths of office, to administer justice without respect to person, and to do equal rights to the rich and the poor, and to faithfully and impartially discharge our duties agreeably to the laws of the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state. So help us God. Adherence to this oath promotes the importance of the rule of law and an independent judiciary in our society, and along the way helps build public trust and confidence in our courts. The work to uphold this oath focuses, of course, primarily on deciding cases, the most important work that we do. But that work also extends to effort judges are engaged in across this state to improve the administration of justice. And many of these efforts enjoy your longstanding support, for which the judicial branch is eternally grateful. And I'll speak to some of those efforts momentarily, but first, I am proud to say that despite challenges posed by public health and weather tragedies, and even more serious external threats to our role as a co-equal and independent branch of Georgia's judiciary, our judiciary continues to make good on our promise to faithfully and impartially discharge our duties. And as a result, I'm proud to report that the state of Georgia's judiciary is strong. As public trust in the integrity of government is on a national decline, one bright spot is that public confidence in state courts seems to be more solid. A recent survey has demonstrated that more than half of Americans give state courts a positive job approval rating. And of course, this statistic is meaningful because more than 95% of all court cases nationwide are filed in our state courts. Part of this improved sentiment is, I think, due to the remarkable work Georgia's judges are doing to honor their oath. One way our state courts are leading is by remaining diligent in addressing challenges to our legal system. And this includes examining the impact of generative artificial intelligence. Courts across the world are dealing with this issue, and Georgia courts must be prepared. To this end, I have established a committee led by my colleague, Justice Andrew Pinson, and Court of Appeals Judge Elizabeth Gobeil, to study the dangers and opportunities that AI presents for our courts. They will collaborate with a similar committee of the State Bar established by Bar President Ivy Cadle, and we expect a report from them by this summer. In addition, I talked to you last year about the shortage of court reporters across our state. For much of this year, the Judicial Council's Standing Committee on Court Reporter Matters has met with key stakeholders to discuss this growing crisis. This shortage is felt nationwide and has only gotten worse since I last spoke to you. The consequences are very real because of delayed hearings in trial courts, delayed appeals to our appellate courts, and delayed closure for victims of crime. Now, the Judicial Council is coming to you this year with a balanced proposal that will give trial judges the option of having many, but not all, court proceedings taken down by a digital recording system. This proposal places no mandate on trial judges to use digital recording, but it does give them the much needed option in order to reduce the amount of time it takes to get necessary records. Court reporters, of course, remain a vital part of our court processes, and we believe this proposal strikes the right balance between protecting the integrity of our court proceedings and transcripts and addressing the very real problems caused from court reporter shortages. I especially want to thank Court of Appeals Judge Ben Land for his leadership on this issue. And of course, we urge your support so that we can keep the wheels of justice moving without unnecessary delay. Another recurring theme from last year, and a truly significant issue for Georgia courts and many of your constituents, is the problem of legal deserts. For the last 2 years, I've told you that there were 7 counties, all rural, with 0 licensed lawyers. Sadly, that number has not changed. That leaves more than 30,000 Georgians without access to legal representation in their home counties for what in many instances is likely the most pressing circumstance in their lives, matters like divorce and evictions and child support and child custody disputes and adoptions. All seemingly routine matters if you have an attorney working for you, but for those who do not, help is almost unattainable and the consequences can be life-altering. I'm committed to leading on this issue, and I'm proud to have other judicial system leaders join me as we examine potential solutions for narrowing our state's civil justice gap. I believe that Georgia should be a national thought leader on this issue, particularly as we've seen Texas, Arizona, and Washington State make great progress. To accomplish this, I created the Supreme Court Study Committee on Legal Regulatory Reform, led by my colleague, Justice Carla Wong McMillan, and Court of Appeals Judge Stephen Dillard. They will work in collaboration with the State Bar of Georgia, judges from various classes of court, and attorneys from diverse practice areas across the state to explore options and innovative opportunities to use the Supreme Court's constitutional authority to regulate the practice of law to bolster civil legal services for rural or low-income Georgians. Maybe some of the barriers of accessing justice are caused by or even made worse by the way our court regulates the practice of law. So our challenge, of course, is to do this without undermining the court's duty to protect the public and not otherwise diminish our state's high standards for legal practitioners in this state. We look forward to the recommendations of this committee, which we hope to receive later this year as we all seek to improve access to justice for Georgians. I want to also thank each of you in the legislative branch who have been great partners in many endeavors to improve our state's justice system. Each of you here today have been instrumental in supporting Judicial Council initiatives over the last several years that have been transformational for some of Georgia's most vulnerable citizens. Recently, you have approved Judicial Council funding requests for Georgia's Medical Legal Partnership Program, like the one in Ware County, my home county. This program provides on-site attorneys who assist low-income or senior residents and families with medically fragile children address their unique and critical legal needs. This ultimately saves lives and tax dollars. Your support of medical legal partnerships is just one example of how important your support is to the state's judicial system. Similarly, over the last several years, you have joined with the Judiciary and nonprofit legal services providers like Atlanta Legal Aid and Georgia Legal Services in supporting kinship care programs. Those help secure temporary or permanent arrangements for children to be cared for by relatives or close family friends when their biological parents are unable or unwilling to do so. This program helps stabilize families. It lessens the trauma of separation and provides children with supportive services while also saving taxpayer funds. So medical legal partnerships and kinship care are but two of the many ways that you all support our courts and vulnerable Georgians, and I want to take this opportunity to personally thank all of you for this critical assistance. In addition to these collaborative initiatives, I'm pleased to report on a landmark initiative that holds the potential to fundamentally improve our justice system. With the support of Governor Kemp, Georgia judicial leaders are moving forward on a generationally transformative tool for collecting, using, and reporting real-time case information and data. This effort, a statewide case management system for our Georgia Superior and State Courts, is critical to improving the work of our justice system. Currently, as you may know, trial court case management and data are siloed in 159 individual and disparate case management systems that lack common functionality, common definitional standards, and an ability to share information. This can mean that during sentencing, our judges do not have accurate data about defendants upon which to drive proper case disposition or even diversion. They may not know, for example, whether a defendant standing before them has a prior criminal history in another county, whether they have ongoing criminal matters in other jurisdictions, whether they've ever had prior civil mental health commitments, or even whether prior arrests and dispositions are accurately reflected in their criminal histories. I hope we can all agree that a judge trying to accurately fashion an appropriate sentence should not have to rely on the goodwill of a criminal defendant to volunteer that they are already on probation somewhere else in Georgia, or that they have a history of civil mental health commitments. And of course, bad, missing, inaccurate, and incomplete data available to our state's judges clearly has a real and frightening public safety implication for every Georgian. The governor has funded this project with federal ARPA funds, and we're currently working collaboratively with all judicial system partners to ensure that the system will serve stakeholder needs with an aim to have a functional system by the end of this year. I'd like to take this opportunity to personally thank the governor for his significant investment in this project, and in so doing, keeping at the forefront the improvements of Georgia courts and the safety of all Georgians. We hope that you share our interest in improved judicial system data and that you will support this project as needed. In addition to these statewide initiatives, trial courts on the local level are also making great progress in fulfilling their oath to the citizens of Georgia. A shining example is Cobb County's Veterans Accountability Treatment Court program, started in 2014 by the late Superior Court Judge Reuben Green, who unfortunately passed away several weeks ago. And while we mourn the loss of Judge Green, we lift up his legacy of judicial leadership through the creation of this program, which is designed to improve outcomes for veterans in our state's criminal justice system. This program, which is currently presided over by Judge Rob Leonard, is specifically tailored to address issues of post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, and other mental health issues that are unique to our country's service members. And they do this through counseling and additional support services, including job training. As I'm sure Judge Leonard will tell you, the need for veterans courts is dire. 50% of veterans with PTSD in our country do not receive treatment, and there are over 181,000 veterans currently incarcerated in the United States. Of those, 81% had a substance use disorder prior to their incarceration, and a full 25% were identified as mentally ill. Veterans Accountability and Treatment Court's missions is to work to change these dire statistics while also increasing public safety by reducing recidivism, and they are succeeding. In Cobb, 64 veterans have successfully graduated from this 18-month program, and the average recidivism rate is an astounding 7%. I think we could all agree that these veterans have faithfully served our country, and we owe it to them to see that our justice system addresses their service needs appropriately. While all of these various state, legislative supported, and of course local initiatives are critical to the health and future of our justice system, it is important to note that they are not the core responsibility of Georgia's courts. That responsibility is to decide cases and to do so swiftly and fairly and consistently with the law. And on that front, Georgia courts are as strong as ever, despite significant threats to this core mission. For the last several years, we've all noticed an alarming increase in attacks on our courts, both attacks on decisions and even physical attacks on judges. It seems that our entire system of justice, a bedrock of our democracy, is under attack. These threats take many forms, from threats posed by disinformation and actual violence, to threats posed by citizens and even at times elected officials publicly stating their intention to not honor and abide by lawful court decisions. We know that you too have experienced physical threats, as we all can recall the instances of swatting that plagued elected officials less than a year ago. These threats simply cannot be tolerated as the new norm in our society, as they threaten the very core of our democracy. And make no mistake, threats against judges are increasing. The United States Marshal Service, which protects our nation's federal courts, reports that threats against federal judges have tripled over the last decade, up from 179 instances of credible threats in 2019 to 457 in 2023. And of course, we have no agency tracking threats against state judges in Georgia. However, increasing anecdotal evidence does demonstrate that we're continuing to see a precipitous increase in threats against judges, clerks, and court staff. Just last month, bomb threats forced the closure of the Muskogee County Courthouse. Now more than ever, the safety of our state's 1,600 judges, as well as our court personnel and the general public who still enter our hallways and courtrooms each day, has become a pronounced concern. It is crucial that our courtrooms are secure and those who work within them can perform their duties without fear. This means not only upgrading our physical security measures, but also implementing comprehensive training so that security situations can be handled more effectively, or better yet, prevented altogether. Last summer, we created and implemented training sessions that may be used by judges and you, lawmakers, across our state to better understand and protect themselves and their families at home or out in their communities. I'd like to take an opportunity to thank my colleague, Justice Sean Ellen LaGrua, and the committee that she chairs for their ongoing work in that regard. I would also like to thank the Georgia Public Safety Training Center and state law enforcement leaders for making all of this possible. I also am very appreciative for the cooperation and support we've received from you all in the legislature in working with this standing committee to add another layer of vital protection through the passage of Senate Bill 508 last session. Thank you especially to the bill sponsors, Senator Clint Dixon and Representative Matt Reeves. We greatly appreciate you and thank you all for taking the safety concerns of our judges seriously. Your investment in judicial security is fundamental to maintaining public confidence in our system of government as a whole. And we look forward to continued collaboration on our recommendations this session to further refine our approach. In addition to its security, an independent judiciary must be able to attract and retain qualified judges. To that end, we will again be pursuing a plan previously supported by the Judicial Council to improve judicial compensation in Georgia. I'd like to also thank last year's sponsors, Representative Rob Leverett and Senator Bo Hatchett. This year, that same proposal is again sponsored by Representative Leverett, but this year in two separate bills. House Bill 85 will address Superior Court judges, and House Bill 86 for statewide judges. We again ask for your continued support of this very important legislation. Equally as concerning as the attacks and threats of physical violence on our judges are the purposeful and widespread efforts to transform the courts into partisan political actors. It's hard to overstate the danger that such efforts pose to the rule of law if left unchecked. As you know, the rule of law is the simple but powerful idea that all of us, even judges, are bound by the laws that we the people have enacted through our elected representatives. That simple idea is the bedrock of our entire democratic structure, and we cannot work without an independent judiciary that has the public's trust and confidence. One way our judiciary is making good on upholding our oaths and doing what we can to further instill public trust in our institution is by supporting legislation that you will see this year to end partisan elections for the remaining few probate and magistrate court judges who are not yet nonpartisan. With the full support of those local courts, we're coming to you again this year asking for your support and assistance in rectifying that issue. We all recognize that the moment judges stop interpreting and applying the law as it is written and start making decisions based on our own policy preferences, or worse yet, when the public starts believing that's what judges are doing or should be doing, our entire democratic system of government becomes irreparably damaged. Simply put, an independent judiciary with respect for the rule of law keeps us from becoming a society in which the person with the biggest stick is in charge. I'm not saying that no one should ever criticize decisions. Legitimate discussions and disagreements about legal analysis and interpretation are, and always have been, a normal and expected exercise of the freedom of speech that we all hold so dear. But what we can't do as a society is undermine the integrity and legitimacy of the institution every time a court issues a decision that is not aligned with our own partisan policy preferences. That is what we think the law should be. Judges ought not be judged on whether you like the outcomes of any particular decisions. Instead, they should be judged on whether they have upheld their oaths to faithfully and impartially discharge our duties agreeably to the laws and the Constitution of this state and the Constitution of the United States, so help us God. As the late Justice Antonin Scalia put it, if you're going to be a good and faithful judge, you have to resign yourself to the fact that you're not always going to like the conclusions you reach. If you like them all the time, you're probably doing something wrong. So I'm honored to lead a judiciary that upholds this oath by faithfully interpreting and applying the law that we the people have put into effect, even if we may not like the outcome in every case. So please help us deliver this simple message. Our state courts are made up of impartial arbiters of the law who have all taken sacred oaths to uphold the Constitution and to defend the rule of law. And our limited role as judges is to interpret the law as it is written and to apply it to resolve disputes between the parties before us, not to serve as a super legislature. As long as the people of Georgia understand and trust that our judiciary is faithfully carrying out that limited role, the rule of law will remain secure. In closing, I want to express the entire judiciary's sincere gratitude for your willingness to provide assistance to us so that we may continue to improve the fair and swift administration of justice and uphold our sacred oaths. Thank you all for the opportunity to be with you today. May God continue to bless us in this great state of Georgia. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.